Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is our best understanding so far of how Gobblegums work in Black Ops 6 Zombies, so you have the clearest possible idea of the fastest way to earn them, exactly how you do that, and which Gobblegums are going to be rewarded for what activities. Subscribe if you're new here, and let's get started. To begin with, we can knock Whimsical Gobblegums out straight away, super straightforward. So these are earned at fixed rounds depending on when you exfil. If you exfil between rounds 15 and 29, you'll get one Whimsical. If you exfil between 30 and 44, you'll get another Gobble. And then any exfils from rounds 45 and onwards will give you 3 Whimsicals all at once. But that means that if you're just grinding Whimsicals, you're probably best off just exfilling on 16 and doing that over and over again, because 3 round 16 exfils will be faster than 1 round 45 or 46 exfil. Next, let's take a look at all of the other Gobbles in the game. There are 4 Gobble Rarities: Rare, Epic, Legendary, and Ultra. And as you probably already know, the rares are very common and you've probably got a lot of those already, and they do things like give you a free max ammo or a free insta-kill, whereas the Ultras do stuff that's a lot more crazy, like giving you Perkaholic, that's all perks at once, or giving you all the drops in the map at once and things like that. Now I've got a full in-depth video breaking down all the abilities of the individual Gobblegums, which is linked in the corner of the screen right now and in the description, but this isn't an abilities-based video, so we're just going to focus on how you get the things. Now the first concept I want to introduce here into our research into Gobblegums comes from testing that I've done on my own account. I've also had multiple people on my team who have been helping me record gameplay, do tests on their account, and I'm also crowdsourcing some data here, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. So, Gobbles are awarded most of the time at the end of a round. That's usually when you're going to get that spin on your screen, but they sometimes are awarded for other things which are not round completions. So, for instance, you might find that you're playing the game, you level up and you get a Gobblegum reward. This is separate to the rewards that you'll get for those round completions. And so as a general tip to just get started here, doing things in game that are going to level you up faster, like for example, getting headshots instead of just explosive kills, let's say, that's always going to be beneficial towards you getting more Gobbles, because you're going to get more levels, and more levels does equal more Gobbles. Now, the type of Gobblegum and the number of Gobblegum that you get in those moments is affected by several factors. And it's a little confusing at first because the factors aren't entirely based on the rarity of the gum. There's actually a bit more granularity to it. So rather than thinking about the Gobblegum purely as rare, epic, legendary, ultra, I think internally in the code for the game, they're actually laid out a little bit differently. And you basically have common rares and uncommon rares. And then you have common epics and uncommon epics, common legendaries, uncommon legendaries, and common ultras and uncommon ultras. And this is relevant because the different overall rarities of gums also start getting awarded more frequently at different times in your games. And the number of Gobbles that you get at any given time is also affected by the way you are playing. And there are a few things that you might want to avoid here actually to prevent yourself from getting missed Gobblegum spins, but we'll talk about that a bit later in the video. So just to start with, if you're looking for rare Gobblegums, the fastest way to get these, in my experience, is literally going to be to just play rounds 1 through round 10, and at some point in there, usually around round 8, 9, or 10, you should get a rare Gobblegum pop-up, and you can then safely just leave your game and do this over and over again. And because those first 10 rounds are going to take you very little time, this is a very easy way to farm rare Gobbles. But you'll notice as you do this that you're going to get a massive number of stock options and not nearly as many cashbacks. That's the max ammo Gobblegum. And the reason for that is the common versus uncommon rares that I talked about a moment ago. Stock option is a very common rare Gobblegum, whereas cashback is an uncommon rare Gobblegum. And so if you specifically are looking for uncommon rares, then you might want to go further into your game, and we'll talk about how that can work in just a moment. So for rares, it's pretty easy, right? That's an easy farm. You can play the map however you want. You just need to get to round 9 or so. You'll get your spin and then back out and you're good. But what do you do if you want those purples, right? Those epics? Well, we got our blue, our rare, at round 9, let's say, but purples are going to really start showing up in the Gobblegum loot pool up to around round 25-ish. And once again, there are more common purples and less common purples. But the nice thing about the way this works is that if you get a really common purple, you have a good chance to also get it alongside one of the blue rares that we were farming between those first 9 to 10 rounds of the game. This is because each Gobble kind of has like an internal cost for Treyarch. hierarch, right? And the later into the rounds that you go, the more you earn this hidden currency that you then automatically spend on gobble spins. So in those first 10 rounds, it's just really unlikely that you're going to get a perker. It's possible technically, but it's super crazy unlikely. But once you get to round 20, let's say, the game's like, okay, the player has earned 100 of our mysterious background currency that they don't see, right? And we could give that to them all in one go and just spend that 100 currency on one of the uncommon purples, right? So the rarest form of the purples, we could give them that all in one go. That could cost 100 of this mysterious currency. Or we could give them a purple that is more common, so maybe it costs 70, and then there's a bit left over, and with that, we can just give the player a blue, right? We can just throw a blue in there. And that might happen all at once, so you might get the purple and the blue at the same time, or it might just be that you get the purple one round, and then just a round later, you get a blue, because you've just sort of topped up your currency, and you've hit that end of round, and so the game is like, okay, it's time to figure out what their currency is right now, so we can evaluate whether we should give them a spin or not, and yeah, they've got enough for a blue, so sure, they can take it. So then, we push forward into the legendary territory, right? Orange territory. And these usually will start coming in around the early 20s, and you'll then start seeing them all the way through about 30, I'd say up to about 35. Those are pretty common. And again, there's uncommon versions of these, and there's common versions of these. And then the same format applies once again with ultras, and ultras will start sort of kicking in, I'd say upwards from about 35 through to literally whatever round you go to beyond that. And again, you can get them earlier. So for example, here I'm getting a Perkaholic on 26, which is amazing. And Perkaholic is in the uncommon ultras category, so the chances of me pulling that were really slim, but you can get lucky, right? It's just that in terms of consistency and averages, I found that from 35 up, those ultras get a little bit more reliable. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that depending on the way you play, all of this stuff can be changed and affected, right? And so I want to give you a few tips to actually earn these things faster. So if you're trying to get to the highest possible round as fast as possible so you can grind out ultra gobblegums, you might think, oh, I'm going to just turn the rampage inducer on. But some people in the community think that that actually limits the number of gobbles you get. And I am not sure I believe this, but I want to share the evidence with you and then we can evaluate. So MZC did a bunch of testing, and in his experience, if you turn the Rampage Inducer on, it affects the number of gobble drops that you get in your game, and it's not just affecting your drops while the Rampage Inducer is active, but it's actually for the rest of that match, I believe. And in my understanding, his reasoning is that because you're spending less time in the game and Treyarch wants you to spend as much time in-game as possible, they're going to limit the amount of gobbles that you earn from a shorter time period, just so you don't completely crack the system and end up with a million gobblegum from some kind of sneaky trick or something. However, in my experience, in my games, when I run the Rampage Inducer, I still feel like I get really consistent gobblegum drops. So I'm not sure if what MZC might have been experiencing there could be related to something else in the game, potentially. But I wanted to flag it here regardless, because there's a chance that the Rampage Inducer might slightly affect your gobblegum drop rate. However, I think that you're probably still fine to turn it on, especially if you're going to round 50 or something and you want a Rampage Induce for the first 20 rounds and you're good enough to do that. I think that that's a valid choice for you to make. All of these clips I have Rampage Inducer on, and I'm still getting early gobblegum drops and frequent gobblegum drops. But the jury's out at the end of the day, right? This is all anecdotal testing with a fairly low sample size. So two things here. Number one, we need you guys to comment your experiences with the best way to farm these. But second, also, if you're just going to activate Rampage Inducer for one round in your game or 2 rounds in your game, that's going to save you what? 30 seconds, a minute, maybe 2 minutes tops. And in that scenario, it's not worth poisoning the well, so to speak, and risking you having a lower gobble drop rate in that game. Even if it's only a 5% lower rate, you still might as well just spend the extra 2 minutes to keep the Rampage Inducer off and then keep your drop rate maxed out, if it is indeed a thing. So if you're just going to be spending a round or 2 in there, then don't bother. So what do you do with this information, right? Well, if you want a specific color of gobblegum, blue, purple, yellow, red, you have 2 options here. The first option is to jump into the game and grind out rounds, and then as soon as you get that first drop with the type of gobble that you're looking for, you can end your game or exfil out of your game. That's probably a good idea, because then you can get some Whimsicals too, and then you can jump back in and just do it all over again. That is going to be a really quick way to get specific early round gobbles, and on a double gobble weekend, that's going to be really effective. But if you're not just going for a round 9 gobble, you might want a strat, right? So I would recommend going on to Liberty Falls, and there are are two places that I think are perfect for getting through the rounds as fast as possible and still getting good gobble drops. So as you play through the first several rounds of your match, make sure you're getting headshots because you'll get more XP for that, and more XP means more potential to earn a gobble. But then once you start getting a little later in your game, you can hoard up and charge through those rounds in one of two locations. Number one is honestly just in the spawn on the roof. It's a really easy spot to just hang out, and it means you have a get out of jail free card at all times because you can just zip line away so long as you have it opened. So make sure you open it. And it's not the fastest spawns in the map, but they are damn quick. And the fact that the zombies have to mantle up just means that you have that kind of going to your advantage as well. So this is a really viable spot. The second spot is inside the Liberty Lanes bowling alley. And the nice thing about this is there's a couple of different exits. If you get in a sticky situation, there's an ammo box in there, so you can grab that at any time. And there's loads of wide open space, which means unlike on the roof, it's a little bit less crowded in there, especially if you start getting abominations and stuff joining you to hang out. So on the roof, that gets a bit crazy, but in the lanes, it's a little bit easier to deal with them. Now, in terms of beyond, let's say round 35, you aren't, in my experience, going to just get ultras every round from there on. Like, the drop rate is not that friendly, but you will find if you're doing one of the high round strats that I've got linked on the screen right now, you'll be getting through rounds in like 2 minutes. Even if you're past round 50, it'll still just take 2 minutes a round. And so that is still a really effective way to get a lot of potential spins and therefore potentially earn yourself a ton of gobblegums. And yes, Treyarch did patch the game to affect this strat, but it still does actually work, just with some very minor tweaks. And so if you want a high round strat specifically and you want to earn some ultras while you do it, click through to the video on screen now.